A first-year high school student and a passionate sumo wrestler, Hinomaru Ushio takes the train to join the best sumo club school, Ishigami High School. To reach the school, he follows the map his friend Kirihito Tsuji made. Approaching the school, Hinomaru comes across another sumo maniac, Shinya Ozeki, practicing passionately in the sumo ring. Out of excitement, Hinomaru challenges him to a fun match. When Hinomaru takes off his clothes, his scary yet masculine body shocks Ozeki. The match begins and Ozeki feels immense pressure from Hinomaru, but he holds against him well. However, Ozeki no longer stands in front of Hinomaru and loses the match. Despite losing, Ozeki praises Hinomaru for showing such potential. Hinomaru informs Ozeki about him joining his school and the sumo club, which makes Ozeki excited. When Hinomaru asks him about the dojo, Ozeki sadly takes him there, but after entering the dojo, Hinomaru remains shocked to see it taken by the gang to hang out. The gang leader, Yuma Goju, a second-year high school student, comes and asks Hinomaru not to interfere in their matter and forego the idea of having the dojo. Ozeki apologizes to Yuma and takes Hinomaru away to avoid a fight between them. When Hinomaru asks him about the other club members, he responds by claiming to be the only member. Hinomaru learns that he accidentally comes to Ogachi High School instead of the famous Ishigami High School. Hinomaru wishes the best of luck to Ozeki and takes leave. He takes another map from Kirihito, but it again brings him to Ogachi School. Hinomaru decides to go back home, but on the way he comes to see someone has destroyed Ozeki's sumo ring. Knowing it is Yuma and the gang's work, Hinomaru, enraged, goes to him and challenges him to a duel. In the duel, if Yuma loses, he has to leave the dojo. Yuma accepts the challenge and brings an unfair fight with Hinomaru for 15 minutes in an effort to drop him, but he fails. Instead, Hinomaru brings him down with only one shot. Ozeki recalls Hinomaru as the two-time elementary school champion from 3 years ago, who, because of his strength, was named after the moniker of demonic national treasure, Anamaru Kunitsuna. Yuma accepts his defeat and gives dojo to Hinomaru and Ozeki. While Yuma is leaving, Hinomaru informs him about his goal to be the best sumo wrestler in Japan and welcomes him for a friendly match someday. The following day of recruiting new members, when no student joins the sumo club, Ozeki sadly comes back to the dojo, but remains shocked to see Hinomaru there. Hinomaru informs him that he withdrew the idea of going to Ishigami High School and is joining Ogachi School, where under Ozeki's captaincy, he will create a strong sumo wrestling team and become the strongest sumo wrestler in Japan. Ozeki and Hinomaru have a practice match in the dojo, which is no less than a dream for Ozeki. To take sumo wrestling to the upper level, they have to participate in a tournament. As Ozeki and Hinomaru are the only sumo club members, they plan to recruit at least 3 more members on tomorrow club joining day. As no student joins the sumo club, Hinomaru devises a plan to offer free chankanave stew with every sign-up. Tomorrow, even with free stew, not a single student comes to give the sumo club a look. Moreover, Hinomaru's stew made the situation worse. Disappointed, Ozeki goes to distribute flair in public, while Hinomaru stays in the stew stall. After Ozeki goes, only a second-year student of the wrestling club Kunisaki Chihiro approaches Hinomaru and finds the stew delicious. He also finds Hinomaru interesting and invites him to his wrestling exhibition match. In the wrestling club, Reina Goju, the president of the student council and the most admired girl in school, overhears the freshman's conversation about the sumo club and gets mad since she dislikes sumo wrestling. Ozeki and Hinomaru go to an exhibition match in the wrestling club and get amazed to see Chihiro's wrestling. Since it is the exhibition match where anyone can challenge the national champion Chihiro, Hinomaru comes into the ring and challenges him in Mawashi. Hinomaru sets the rules for the match according to which he will play as per sumo rules, and Chihiro can play according to wrestling rules. Reina comes up as the referee and the match begins with Chihiro coming up with his special move, but Hinomaru brings him down with a single shot. Chihiro gets up and comes towards Hinomaru with full force again, but Hinomaru keeps on dodging his sharp moves. When no move works, Chihiro attacks with his special air-flying move, but Hinomaru still dodges it nicely. Hinomaru then comes up with open hand strikes and applies other moves to bring Chihiro on the ground again. On the last attack, Chihiro comes with his impressive technique, but Hinomaru counters his attack and brings him out of the fighting circle. To everyone's surprise, a most powerful student in the school lost to Hinomaru. With a heavy heart, Reina declares Hinomaru victorious, but she is angry when Chihiro decides to join the sumo club. When the newly recruited 3 members of the sumo club are standing out of the dojo, another student, Kei Mitsuhashi, approaches them and wishes to join the sumo club, much to their delight. Yuma, against his sister Reina's willingness, informs her about his decision to join the sumo club to defeat Hinomaru one day. The following day, Yuma cleans the dojo, apologizes to Ozeki, and shows his desire to join the sumo club. Just when all 5 sumo club members are present in a dojo, Kirihito, Hinamaru's friend, appears as the club's coach with the aim of bringing the team to the national level. After mentioning the names and accomplishments of all the club members, introduces himself as a first-year student. He informs them that he will take the sumo wrestling club to the national level and has already arranged a practice match with one of the national level schools, Ava University High School. The following day for the practice match, the group reaches Ava High School and Rihanna also accompanies them just to convince her brother to leave the sumo club. At the school, they encounter the Ava wrestling team. The practice match begins with Yuma as the first member from Ogachi against Ega. Being a martial art expert, Yuma tries to bring a fight, but he loses with the initial attack. After him, Ozeki and Kei also lose badly, one after another. Hinamaru sees Ega's sumo wrestler Shun Korea and recalls his middle school wrestling against him. To reunite with Shun after a long time, Hinamaru follows him. For the next opponent, Shigeru comes into the ring. He exhibits his wrestling techniques and easily defeats his opponent. Shun approaches Sasuke, another sumo wrestler from Ega School. He informs him of Hinamaru's presence and asks him about Hinamaru, but Sasuke denies it. Kirihito recalls how he convinces Ava's sumo wrestling team's captain, Jin Yomoda, to come to a practice match with them. He informs Jin that wrestling with Hinamaru is the only way to motivate and trigger their most muscular wrestler, Sasuke. Following Shun, Hinamaru encounters Sosuke and recalls his elementary school wrestling with Sasuke, in which Sosuke breaks his arm. After that incident, Sasuke's father, Yokozuna Yamada-kuni, a legendary sumo wrestler, restrains him not to bout any student. Hinamaru wants to bout with Sasuke again, but holding his word, Sasuke restrains from wrestling. In place of Sasuke, Shun, another strong sumo wrestler, comes against Hinamaru in the ring. Wrestling begins with Hinamaru trying to push Shun back, but Shun dodges and moves forward so Hinamaru doesn't get hold of his mawashi. Both struggle to defeat each other and show their potential, but when Hinamaru fails to take over Shun, he combines his 2 special attacks and takes Shun down in a moment. After defeating Shun, Hinamaru triggers Sosuke by claiming that he will become a professional Yokozuna and a top professional sumo wrestler using his Yokozuna wrestling style. He rechallenges Sosuke, and for the first time, Sosuke goes against his father and gets ready to bout Hinamaru. Sasuke comes into the ring and with his big shot, pushes Hinamaru away. Both engage in a crazy battle, but before declaring the winner, the wrestling gets stopped by the coach of the Ega Sumo Club. The first official practice match of Ogachi School ends with many lessons and techniques to focus on. The following morning, Kirihito gathered boys on the boat in the name of morning training. As a coach, Kirihito believes that the shabby movement of the boat helps a sumo wrestler maintain a proper balance. After morning training on the way to school, Kirihito recalls the time when they were in middle school. 3 years ago, Kirihito contacted Hinamaru and instead of motivating his passion for sumo wrestling, made him worry by saying that his hard work will not bring him the success he wants. Now he wants to overdo his words and rectify them. Hinamaru also remembers his master Yamada-kuni's words in the first year of middle school. When people made fun of his stature, Yamada-kuni motivated him. To achieve his success, he informs Hinamaru to work harder for 3 constant years. Chihiro does some research on the rules of being a professional sumo wrestler. To become a pro sumo wrestler, a candidate must pass the physical test with a minimum height much higher than Hinamaru. At the dojo, Kirihito instructs boys on their weaknesses and guides them on the proper ways to take control of them. To show Hinamaru his weak spot, Kirihito himself comes into the ring and wrestles with him. With his double technique, Hinamaru tries to defeat Kirihito, but in the end, Kirihito shows him the craziest triple combo technique and brings him down. After the wrestling in the changing room, Kirihito uses an inhaler to proper his breath because he has weak lungs, which is why he cannot wrestle himself. However, to follow his passion and reprimand the words he said to Hinamaru, he chooses to coach the team. Yuma asks Hinamaru why he struggled for the pro league because of his short stature. He can never pass their physical exam. Kirihito explains that Hinamaru has to become an inter-high individual champion called High School Yokozuha. If Hinamaru gains this preference, he does not have to go through any physical exam to enter the pro league, and this is the only way he can become the best sumo wrestler in Japan. Kirihito offers his services as the coach and shows his passion for helping Hinamaru achieve his goal and making Ogachi's sumo wrestling team the strongest among other sumo clubs. The next morning, when Rina visits the sumo club, she sees boys doing strange drills instructed by Coach Kirihito. As there is very little time until the tournament, Kirihito decides to take the boys to Ishigami High School for training on the day off. However, he sends Hinamaru somewhere else in order to fight a range of strong opponents to perfect his new technique. Everyone approaches Ishigami High School on the day off, but Chihiro does not get to go because he has failed the exam and has to take another class. At Ishigami School, they get impressed to see sumo club members' tough training and courage to keep it on. Kirihita meets the captain of the club, Kanamori, and pledges to conduct a practice match with them. Initially, Kanamori agrees to wrestle with Hinamaru, but when he learns that Hinamaru is not in the practice match, he rethinks his decision. After some thought, he finally decides to have a practice match. In the Adachi Sumo Club, a student from Ishigami School, Araki, has been waiting for a long. Shigeru approaches and inquires him about his purpose to visit the sumo club. Araki informs him that he comes to see Hinamaru, and during the conversation also reveals his desire to be the best mixed martial artist. Araki's words get on Shigeru's nerves, so he baffles about his identity as Hinamaru. Shigeru also challenges Araki to the sumo wrestle, which he accepts. In Ishigami Sumo Wrestling Club, the practice match begins with Yuma first going against Ishigami's strong wrestler, Mamiya. Yuma's practice drills help him in the initial shots, but he soon gets defeated. At Adachi, while wrestling, after an initial shot, Araki recalls that Hinamaru has short stature and a different attacking style. He stops wrestling Chihiro and leaves to meet him again in the Inter-High tournament. From Ishigami, another national treasure, Mizuki Sada, comes into the ring against Ozeki. Ozeki tries all techniques but does not find a way to defeat him and ends up losing the match. Elsewhere, per Kirihita's instructions, Hinamaru reaches Shibakiyama stable, where the pro wrestlers are produced. After hearing Kirihito explain Hinamaru's talent, Oyakata Shibakiyama, the master of the Shibakiyama stable, is enthusiastic about Hinamaru, but when he sees Hinamaru's height, he is discouraged. Hinamaru is pitted against Takuya Terahara by the other students trying to humiliate him, but Hinamaru easily defeats Takuya. Because Oyakata was originally known as Firecracker and had a similar sumo style to Hinamaru's, Kirihito ordered Hinamaru to face him. Norihiro Seinoyama, a then-ranked Sekitori Sumo, is intrigued by Hinamaru and agrees to a practice battle. But after repeatedly winning against Hinamaru, he calls the Hinamaru's technique shoddy and his quest to become Yokozuna an insult to sumo. Even though he loses again, Hinamaru insists on another battle and manages to push Norihiro's knee all the way to the floor. Norihiro gets impressed and asks Hinamaru to stay for more training. That night, Hinamaru tells club boss Saki Tenoji that he is unsure whether Norihiro or Sasuke is the strongest player. Oyakata believes Hinamaru has what it takes to succeed as a professional sumo wrestler and prove to the world that even small sumo wrestlers can achieve Yokozuna status. Saki expects to see Hinamaru at the national championship, but she expresses skepticism that he would triumph given that he will face off against Shido Tenoji, her brother, and the current high school Yokozuna in the competition. Shinya, who is in his last year of high school, is concerned that he won't ever get another chance if the club doesn't advance through the preliminary matches to play in the national championship. He is reassured by Hinamaru that they will succeed. In the beginning, Adachi members win all the matches with the exception of Kei, who fails to match his opponent's strength. The Adachi must defeat the Ishigami Sumo Club in the championship round. Kei engages Mamiya in a wrestling match, but instead of trying to overwhelm his much bigger opponent, he takes Kirihito's advice and uses his speed to get behind him and try to push him out of the ring. Mamiya, however, had been forewarned about this move by Tsuyoshi, counters and throws Kei from the ring, winning the match. Kei is furious and unhappy with himself, and Chihiro notices this and decides to defeat his own opponent in Kei's honor. Chihiro and Genosuke quickly throw, counter, and grapple with one another while employing their respective martial art techniques. The idea of disappointing his squad continually sidetracks Chihiro, but Hinamaru gently urges him to concentrate solely on his own battle. He counters Genosuke once more before throwing him with Hinamaru's signature move to claim victory. Yuma battles Tsuyoshi, who has a special dislike for crooks and is nearly thrown out of the ring. A flashback reveals that Yuma, who had bullied Ozeki before joining the sumo club, felt true regret for his actions and urged his former karate instructor to accept him back so he could support his sumo teammates in winning. Yuma comes close to winning, but Tsuyoshi's excellent sumo training gives him the upper hand and Yuma loses. Before the actual bout even begins, Yuki Sanada knocks Ozeki to the ground in an attempt to undermine his confidence, but this strategy fails as Ozeki easily overcomes him. In a number of flashbacks, it is revealed that Yuki once battled some criminals at Ishigami before being suspended. During this period, despite having issues with criminals, Yuki repeatedly saw Ozeki's strong resolve and grew to love him greatly. Because Ozeki and Yuki are equals in strength and skill, the match is settled when both fall from the ring simultaneously, and Ozeki is declared the winner by the referee. With Ishigami and Odachi tied for first place, the outcome of the championship match between Hinamaru and Mizuki Sada, the ace of Ishigami's sumo club, will decide the ultimate winner. Mizuki is eager to fight Hinamaru since he has grown weary of competing against less experienced opponents. When the fight starts, Mizuki is relieved to see that Hinamaru is on an equal footing with him. But when faced with Hinamaru's ferocity, he is forced to engage in a true battle for the first time as they trade blows and counter each other's movements. Mizuki skillfully counters as Hinamaru positions himself to throw Mizuki and win, flinging Hinamaru over his shoulder. As he's in the air, he has a flashback to all of his past losses, including those of his mother and colleagues. Hinamaru violently survives the takedown by landing on his feet while suffering an elbow injury at the same time. It turns out that Hinamaru's arm injury is not serious, but Mizuki has a shattered arm and a partially dislocated shoulder. He wants to leave the group out of humiliation, but the other members don't hold him responsible and forbid him. Despite their weariness and wounds, Shigeru declares he wants one more match against Hinamaru, the strongest sumo he is aware of. The Odachi Club currently competes in individual bouts where they almost certainly will have to struggle. Ozeki comes close to losing but prevails solely by luck. Hinamaru and Chihiro, who imitate Mizuki's takedown maneuver, win their matches easily. Yuma wins his match before Hinamaru and Chihiro square off. Chihiro imitates movements from Genosuke, Tsuyoshi, and Yuma in an effort to trick Hinamaru, but fails as Hinamaru counters with a headbutt and a takedown. In the meantime, it is discovered that Hinamaru's arm is actually gravely hurt, and that he concealed this information from the others so they wouldn't be lenient toward him. Despite his loss, Shiro is glad. Kei loses his bout, but he continues to trust Kirihito's instruction. After the second round victory, Ozeki faces Hinamaru, who soon learns that he is suffering from an arm injury. However, out of respect for one another, they continue to engage in a fierce battle, and Ozeki even manages to withstand Hinamaru's hallmark takedown, Demon Wheel. Hinamaru eventually forces Ozeki out of the ring and is crowned the winner of the individual matches. Rina snaps a group photo as a memento to mark the occasion. The boys' victory in the match reaches the school. Even the principal calls them and admires their struggle. At Adachi Sumo Club, Kirihito recruits Reina and Shizuka Hori as the club's managers. Later, Kirihito shows Hinamaru Tenoji Shido's former matches while Hinamaru is unaware of how to win against him. Oyaka Shibakiyama contacts Korea and invites the Odachi Sumo team to Nagoya for training. At Oyakata training camp, boys begin practicing, but Hinamaru looks dejected. Sekitori takes Hinamaru with him while Reina and Shizuko secretly follow them, per Kirihito's instructions. Sekitori takes Hinamaru elsewhere, while other strong wrestlers are practicing. When Sekitori denies respecting Hinamaru, he challenges Sekitori for the duel and defeats him with the fear of losing again. However, in the coming matches, Hinamaru keeps on losing. Sekitori then informs him that his signature technique is full of flaws and he cannot reach nationals. Just then, an old man appears and offers to take Hinamaru and Rina with him. Surprisingly, other sumo wrestlers show great respect to the old man. The old man then reveals his identity as the former Yokozuna. He shows his desire to train Hinamaru until he makes his signature move flawless. Former Yokozuna Shunkai informs Hinamaru and Rina that during their 2-week stay in Nagoya, they will do per his instructions and not bother to disobey him anyway. Shunkai begins the training by letting Hinamaru and Rina, with minimum money to make him food. During the first few days, Hinamaru remains confused and does not understand the training methods, but he considers them worthwhile. For wrestling training, Shunkai invites Sekitori, 5th-ranked West Mega Shira Garyuzeki. He instructs Hinamaru to wrestle with him by only using his triple combo technique. Even after several bouts, Hinamaru is defeated, and after 15 minutes, the training time ends. The following morning, Hinamaru goes grocery shopping alone as he finally understands the food riddle. Meantime, Tenma Hikage approaches Shunkai and wants him to leave Hinamaru and train him instead. He also challenges Hinamaru for a duel. Hinamaru accepts and gets into the rings to show the fruit of his training. In the bout, Tenma initially underestimates Hinamaru, but Hinamaru, despite his short stature, picks Tenma from the ground, applies his triple combo signature technique and brings him down. After defeating him, he also informs Shunkai that he has resolved the food riddle. With the money he was given for food, he only had to order food instead of making it and adjusting himself according to the minimum. Later, Shunkai calls the present Yokozuna for one only match with Hinamaru. Hinamaru loses the match in only a few seconds, but is happy even after losing as he considers himself lucky for receiving training from former Yokozuna and having a bout with the present Yokozuna. Shunkai, who is secretly hearing him, recalls how Shibakiyama requested him to help Hinamaru realize that even with his short stature, he is lucky and can achieve more. Ondachi High School Sumo Club members keep on training hard, and after training for 2 weeks, leave Nagoya to continue their practice back at the school. All Sumo clubs practice high, and finally, the Sumo National Championship begins. Finally, Hinamaru and Tennoji square off in the ring. Tennoji instantly responds to Hinamaru's every move, crushing the match for him right away. Hinamaru moves him into position for his special move, but Tennoji throws Hinamaru to the ground with an arm lock, defeating him. The match ends with Hinamaru injuring his arm again. Friends of Hinamaru are upset by his defeat since it puts an end to his dream of overcoming the height restriction to become Japan's Yokozuna. Ozeki explains that even though Hinamaru lost to Tennoji, he can still avoid the height restriction regulation if their team defeats Tennoji's squad in the team matches. The Kanazawa Kita High team, which features Tenma, a national treasure, is up against the Odachi Club. When Ozeki fights Kanazawa's captain, Ryu Aizawa, he shocks everyone by throwing him out of the ring. Yuma confronts Sara Takumi and staves off his attack to eventually defeat him with a trip and strike called the Castle Break Punch. After that, Chihiro confronts Tenma and analyzes Tenma's maneuvers using the instruction he received from Mizuki. Tenma attacks with more force, but Chihiro's unconventional fighting style prevails, allowing him to lift Tenma and fling him to the ground, ultimately defeating him. He is shocked to discover that the move he made out of instinct was the kimono string drop, a potent yet challenging move. To help his team, Hinamaru returns after treating his injury. Thrilled by Tenma's defeat, the Odachi Club went on to defeat all of Tenma's teammates and then the Kabutoyama High School squad as well. Kei is the only one who lost his match, but he doesn't let it stop him. Sada invites Hinamaru and his team to practice with them. Although they are rivals, Sada chooses to provide Hinamaru and his friends with advice on how to deal with Tennoji. While watching a bout between Tennoji and Sosuke, Kirihito is concerned that the victory will become even more powerful and cause issues if one of the Odachi Club members ever has to wrestle them. Tennoji and Sasuke engage in a heated duel as Sada explains that Tennoji has 2 distinct styles of sumo, one that emphasizes force without any defensive maneuvers and is used when Tennoji is observing and eliciting responses from his opponents. Hinamaru is successful in defeating Sada by drawing strength from the inside. When Kirihito reappears, he informs that Sosuke ultimately defeated Tennoji. Sosuke, Tennoji, and Hinamaru go to the semifinals, where Hinamaru's team has to compete with Tennoji. Inoki, who has long admired Tennoji and is anxious for Tennoji to confront Sosuke again, will face Ozeki. Ozeki puts up a terrific fight but gets tossed and lost. Kei faces Shuta Masaomi in the match. Kei worries that Hinamaru won't appreciate him because of his use of tricks and counterattacks, but Hinamaru reassures him that his manner is entirely appropriate. With the intention of throwing Shuto off balance mentally, Kei attacks Shuto head-on but attacks too early. Once the match has begun, he immediately follows by turning away from Shuto. Shuto becomes impetuous and charges wildly. Kei uses his reversal technique followed by a leg sweep, and as a result, both sweep out of the ring when the referee stands Kei victorious. As the group celebrates Kei's victory, other referees contest the outcome and call it a simultaneous defeat, forcing Kei and Shuto to a rematch. Kei is promptly defeated because he is unable to apply his techniques a second time. In the following match, Shigeru matches Kano Akira, also known as National Treasure Okana Hira. Shigeru hears Kano criticize Kei's efforts and gets even more motivated to defeat him after hearing this. Because Chihiro fears losing and disappointing his teammates, Kano attacks Chihiro first, but Chihiro decides to join the attack by imitating Odenda's thrusting palm strikes, nearly knocking Kano to the ground. Kano manages to grasp both hands on Chihiro's belt because he feels that being in second place to Tennoji is something to be proud of and won't lose to anyone but Tennoji. Chihiro decides not to retaliate and, taking a cue from Kei, pushes Kano outside the ring to claim victory. Next, Yuma has to compete in a match against Batam Bat Bear, an exchange student who specializes in Mongolian wrestling, but the pressure starts to get to him before Hinamaru reassures him and helps him overcome his nervous breakdown. Batam employs forceful blows to mimic Yuma in an effort to outplay him. Unable to advance, Yuma starts employing the martial art methods his master taught him to use against sumo wrestlers, and he succeeds in striking Batam so many times that he is driven out of the ring, resulting in Yuma's victory. Because of his defeat, Batam's team is now tied with Hinamaru's team, and their chances of winning the match depend on the outcome of Tennoji versus Hinamaru in the final. Tennoji and Hinamaru are familiar with one another from previous encounters and are aware of each other's moves and counter-moves, but as Tennoji pushes Hinamaru toward the edge of the ring, it becomes apparent that he has more experience. Knowing he is in danger, Hinamaru switches from his normal all-out attack to a defensive stance and even moves backwards, giving the impression that he has given up to the onlookers. On the other hand, Hinamaru uses the space between them for a strong lunge, attacking using techniques he learned from his teammates. This briefly confounds Tennoji, allowing Hinamaru to seize his belt, but Tennoji quickly recovers and counterattacks. Hinamaru unleashes his special attack by remembering Chizuko's advice and all the assistance everyone has provided for him. In the end, Hinamaru throws Tennoji to the ground and is proclaimed the winner, earning his club a spot in the finals. Sasuke and his Sumo team excitedly prepare to fight against Hinamaru's team in the finals. In the semifinals, the Agachi team has to fight Ava High School. For the first bout, Chihiro comes against Aga's Shido Tennoji, his hateful brother. Shido Tennoji, overconfident, loses his guard and Chihiro tries to push him out of the ring. Shido Tennoji instantly gathers himself and brings a fight with Chihiro. When Chihiro failed to grab his Mawashi belt, he applies the flash attack and, in rage, delivers several hand attacks to push him out of the ring. Shido Tennoji bears all attacks and headbutts Chihiro to put him at a disadvantage. As Chihiro has less training on headbutts, he loses balance and ultimately faces defeat. For the second bout, Kirihito comes against Ran Suwei in K-place. Kirihito, with weak lungs, avoids wasting any time and comes with fast speed to end the match early. With a top-notch technique, Kirihito tries to catch Suwei off guard and finally grabs his Mawashi, but at the same time, Suwei also gets a hold of Kirihito's Mawashi belt and both simultaneously land out of the ring. The bout ends with a draw and opponents have to bout again, but Kirihito has already reached his limit and can't take it any longer because of his weak health. Suwei notices Kirihito's zero stamina and plans to defeat him in the second bout, but before he makes any attack, Kirihito, without wasting any time, uses the spiral curl technique and defeats him. In the third bout, Yuma faces Jin Yomota and gives his all to bring Yomota down, but he loses his strength. The third bout starts and Daniel Stefano from Ava School comes into the ring against Ozeki. During the bout, Ozeki recalls how Hinamaru motivated him and raised his passion for sumo wrestling. After several tries, Ozeki finally gets hold over Daniel's Mawashi belt and puts him down on the ground with a right overarm throw. Ozeki gives all his potential and stands up victorious. For the fourth and final bout, Hinamaru fights against Sosuke. The battle begins with a flickering fire, intense head-on attacks, and rising strikes on Sosuke, but Sosuke fast moves dodge it. Both then reach the perfect range for their killer moves and recall their struggle and passion for being the pro sumo wrestler. Sasuke decides to bring the match to his side by applying his super great serpent clever move, but Hinamaru resists and begins to push Sasuke outside. Sasuke seizes his speed with his overwhelming physical energy. Sasuke gets hold of Hinamaru's Mawashi belt and tries to deliver his super attack, but Hinamaru resists the attack graceful and instead gains the hold over Sasuke's Mawashi belt. He catches Sasuke off guard and, using the time, applies his special triple combo reverse technique to ultimately throw him on the ground. Hinamaru finally defeats the strongest opponent and surpasses his limit to achieve the goal of becoming a pro sumo wrestler. Hinamaru's victory makes everyone emotional yet passionate enough to achieve what they want. For the first time in history, Agachi High School gracefully wins the National High School Sumo Team Tournament,